Have you ever wondered how we went from a world of separate, isolated continents to the interconnected global village we live in today? How did maps, once filled with terrifying sea monsters and vast blank spaces, become the detailed, accurate GPS systems we carry in our pockets? The answer lies in one of the most dramatic and transformative periods in human history, the Age of Exploration. This wasn't just about drawing new lines on a map. It was about redrawing the very boundaries of the known world, forever changing trade, culture, and the course of civilization. So what exactly sparked this explosion of discovery? For centuries, Europe had a ravenous appetite for the exotic luxuries of the East, spices like cinnamon, cloves, and pepper, along with silk and other precious goods. These weren't just flavorings, they were status symbols, preservatives, and even thought to have medicinal properties. The problem? Overland trade routes like the famous Silk Road were long, dangerous, and controlled by various middlemen, which made these goods astronomically expensive by the time they reached European markets. With the rise of the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century, these routes became even more difficult to access. European powers knew they needed a new way to reach the source. They needed a sea route. The key that unlocked this possibility was a revolution in maritime technology. Shipbuilders developed new, more robust vessels, like the caravel. These ships were a game changer. They were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable than earlier designs. Crucially, their triangular lateen sails allowed them to sail against the wind, a feat that was nearly impossible before. Imagine trying to explore an unknown coastline when you can only sail in one direction. Alongside better ships came better navigational tools. The astrolabe in the quadrant helped sailors determine their latitude by measuring the position of the sun or stars, while the magnetic compass provided a reliable sense of direction. For the first time, sailors had the confidence and the capability to venture out of sight of land and into the vast, intimidating unknown of the open ocean. Portugal was the first to really seize this opportunity. Under the visionary leadership of Prince Henry the Navigator, they began a systematic, step-by-step exploration of the African coast. Henry established a school for navigation, bringing together the best mapmakers, shipbuilders, and astronomers. This wasn't just a quest for glory, it was a strategic national project. Year after year, Portuguese captains pushed further south, setting up trading posts and mapping the coastline. Their ultimate goal was to round Africa and find a direct sea route to India. In 1488, Bartolomeu Dias achieved a major breakthrough when he rounded the southern tip of Africa, which he named the Cape of Storms, later optimistically renamed the Cape of Good Hope. The path was now open. Just a decade later, in 1498, Vasco da Gama completed the journey, sailing around Africa and arriving in Calicut, India. He returned to Portugal with a cargo of spices worth 60 times the cost of his voyage. The floodgates of trade had been thrown wide open. While Portugal focused on the eastern route, their rivals, the Spanish, decided to gamble on a wildly different idea. An Italian navigator named Christopher Columbus was convinced that the world was smaller than most believed, and that he could reach the East Indies by sailing west across the Atlantic. After being rejected by the Portuguese, he finally secured funding from Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain. In 1492, with his 3 small ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, he set sail into the unknown. After a tense, nerve-wracking voyage, his crew spotted land. Columbus believed he had reached the outskirts of Asia, the Indies. He had, in fact, stumbled upon an entire new world, the Americas. He made 4 voyages in total, always insisting he had found Asia. But his discovery triggered a massive wave of European colonization and forever linked the destinies of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Columbus's voyages opened the door, and soon other explorers rushed through it. An Italian explorer sailing for Spain, Amerigo Vespucci, was one of the first to argue that this was not Asia but a new continent altogether, a mundus novus. It's his name, Amerigo, that was eventually Latinized to America on maps. The race was now on to understand the true scale of this discovery. In 1519, the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan, sailing for Spain, set out with a fleet of 5 ships on what would become one of the most incredible journeys in human history. His goal was to find a western passage to the Spice Islands. He navigated the treacherous straits at the southern tip of South America, now named The Strait of Magellan emerged into a vast, calm ocean he named the Pacific. The journey across was brutal. With the crew suffering from starvation and scurvy, Magellan himself was killed in the Philippines, but one of his ships, the Victoria, under the command of Juan Sebastian Elcano, continued westward. In 1522, it limped back to Spain, having completed the first ever circumnavigation of the globe. It was definitive proof that the world was round and far larger than anyone had imagined. The impact of these discoveries was nothing short of revolutionary. It led to what we call the Columbian Exchange, a massive transfer of plants, animals, diseases, technologies, and ideas between the Old World and the New. From the Americas, Europe received potatoes, tomatoes, corn, chocolate, and tobacco, which completely transformed European diets and agriculture. The potato, in particular, helped fuel a population boom. In the other direction, Europe introduced wheat, sugar, coffee, horses, cattle, and pigs to the Americas. Horses, for example, revolutionized the lives of Native American tribes on the Great Plains. But this exchange had a dark side. European diseases like smallpox and measles, to which the native populations had no immunity, spread like wildfire, causing a catastrophic demographic collapse, wiping out an estimated 90% of the indigenous population in some areas. This devastation, combined with brutal conquest, paved the way for European empires to take root. The age of exploration also shifted the economic center of gravity in Europe. For centuries, Mediterranean city-states like Venice and Genoa had dominated trade. Now, power and wealth shifted to the Atlantic nations: Portugal, Spain, and later England, France, and the Netherlands. The vast amounts of gold and silver plundered from the Aztec and Inca empires flooded into Spain, creating immense wealth, but also causing massive inflation across Europe. New global trade networks were established, built on the exploitation of resources and people. The horrific transatlantic slave trade began, forcibly transporting millions of Africans to the Americas to work on sugar, cotton, and tobacco plantations, creating a system of immense suffering that would last for centuries. The world was fundamentally and permanently altered. Before the age of exploration, civilizations existed in relative isolation. Afterward, the world became a single, interconnected system. This period laid the foundations for the globalized world we know today, sparking centuries of European dominance, colonialism, and the complex web of trade and cultural exchange that defines modern life. It was a time of incredible courage, ambition, and scientific advancement, but also of immense cruelty, exploitation, and cultural destruction. Understanding this era is key to understanding the origins of our modern world, with all its connections and its conflicts. The lines drawn on the map by these explorers were more than just geography. They were the outlines of the future. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments which explorer or event you find most interesting. See you next time.